Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wes Chatham. This is my good friend Ty Franck. Coincidentally, this is actually the truth. Jen is making Thai soup tonight in honor of you, Ty.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we named it after you. I mean, it is soup that was originated in Thailand. It was a Thailand recipe, but I know what Thai really means. We renamed it. They call it Thai soup, but we renamed it Thai soup in your honor.
Well, I appreciate having a soup named after you is the highest honor a person can achieve in one lifetime.
And I'm going to spread it around. Yeah. Whenever you hear the name Thai soup, that's about you, that was named after you, that I created.
Nice.
Listen, guys, we're a little bit in a hurry today. Ty has a heart out, and he has to be out of here in like 45 minutes. So we're going to put our head down and steamroll it. What are we talking about today, Ty?
We're talking about force projection, which is a topic in much discussion right now because you got at least one in the news war going on, though the term force projection keeps coming up. But we used it in science fiction in a TV show called The Expanse, episode 3 of season 6.
Elaborate more on force projection.
Force projection is your ability to, here's the most obvious thing ever, your ability to project force, your ability to project your will. If you have 1,000 fighter planes and none of them can fly past the border of your country, you have a lot of force and you have no ability to project that force into other things. Like for America, the main source of our ability to project force is our massive aircraft carrier fleet, which we can send all over the world, which can launch attacks in basically any country on Earth from one of those aircraft carriers. And so America has an enormous ability to project force. The USSR, its force projection was pretty limited to its nuclear arsenal because it didn't have much ability to project its military past its borders. So they had a lot of fighter planes, they had a lot of tanks, but in order to use those in another country, they basically had to roll across the ground to get there. Yeah, so that's the idea, is how can we enforce our will in far distant places with our military?
I mean, Russia's force projection has been a bit exposed with the war in Ukraine.
Well, and they had a lot of nuclear missiles. So what we're realizing is the USSR, it was like the way that they could project force all over the world was to dial all the way up to 100, right? Like just fire nuclear missiles at everybody. Yeah, that's a great way to project some force. It's kind of a no-win scenario, but it's one way to do it. The problem they had was in the middle ground. So, within their borders, they were unstoppable. If they went all the way up to 100 and fired, nuclear missiles at everybody, they were unstoppable. But that sort of middle ground of like, can you attack a country that is not within range of your fighter planes effectively? They had one aircraft carrier. It's basically the worst aircraft carrier ever. I think it's actually disabled right now. It's sitting in a sunken dry dock. Mm-hmm. They supposedly had a carrier killer fleet. The Moskva was one of their ships that was designated a carrier killer. It was a heavy cruiser that had anti-ship missiles. And the idea was you don't need carriers because one of these Moskva class ships can fire anti-ship missiles and sink your carriers. And then it got sunk by Ukraine. So kind of exposed them a little bit there.
Well, I mean, you talk about inside their borders. I mean, one of their greatest weapons inside their borders is the fucking cold. I mean, think about Napoleon or World War II.
Yeah, you don't want to fight up there.
Yeah. I mean, really what their tactic was in those days is just follow me and just come get me, just slowly running away and just dragging him into this tundra and just freezing and starving them to death.
Yep.
The miserability of their country is like one of their greatest weapons inside of their borders.
Well, and the vastness of it.
In the vastness. That contributes to being miserable.
Country. Yeah. It's an enormous country. It has long stretches of just nothing, of just frozen tundra. And if you got to, if you're Napoleon and you got to you got to drag 200,000 soldiers and like 400 cannons through that frozen marshland, that's a shitty day. That's a shitty day for everybody.
Talk a little bit about Marco's reason and his choice to engage the Rocinante when he did in this episode.
There's a lot of reasons why, if you're Marco, destroying the Rocinante is a good PR move. right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he even says, you know, the Pella will be seen destroying a symbol of Earther and Belter cooperation, a symbol of oppression from the inner planets, right? And if he's able to put out a press release saying, oh, by the way, I ran into the Rocinante, I blew it up, I killed James Holden, that's a good press release for Marco. But I think even more than that, the reasons for it are even more buried in his pride, which is, I'm going to blow up the ship that has the woman who dared to leave me and the man she's sleeping with now, right? I think underneath it all, that's really what it is. How dare you leave me? And I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill the guy you're fucking.
Yeah, I mean, it's pride on many different levels. You have all the way down to the most personal, the most basic, all the way up until like, I'm going to show the fucking world, you know, what the Pella can do, and it's going to take down this symbol. This was the first time, I mean, maybe there's other times that I can't remember, but this was the first time me, as a fan of the show, and Amos as a character, was fucking pissed off at Holden for not blowing up Marco. If you can't talk a little bit about like what led up to that decision, because it just seems so selfish, even though, you know, he's putting the feelings of his girlfriend, even though, you know, how much they love each other, whatever. But I mean, Marco at this point, he's killed more people than anybody in history's existence, right? And if he survives, who knows how many more people are going to be murdered. And if you have a chance to take somebody out like this, like, how do you base your decision on such a micro reasoning?
Because people do all the time. That is very human to, in the moment, to see the destruction of something that you love personally against sort of these bigger ideals and make the personal choice. People do that all the time. And there's another thing that people often miss is Marco is charismatic. Now, this is not excusing Holden. Holden made the choice he did for personal reasons, just like Marco made the choice he did to attack the Rocinante for personal reasons. Both of these men are acting from very personal reasons, right? But even taking that out, the thing that people don't recognize about this moment is this moment probably saves the inner planets, because Marco is charismatic, but he's not a brilliant tactician. He thinks he is. Everybody keeps telling him he is, but he's not. He makes mistake after mistake tactically. If he's dead, and he wouldn't have lost a big chunk of his fleet, he would have lost the Pella, you know, and it's an important ship in his fleet, but it's not the entirety of his fleet. And somebody more competent takes over as the leader of that faction, that actually might be really bad for the inner planets. One of the things I was thinking about.
That's not what's going through Holden's head.
No, I'm not talking about what's going through Holden's head. I preface this by saying this was a very personal decision.
Right. And this is an interesting thing that you're bringing up, like the practicality of it. But there's also like Marco being the symbol that's holding everything together. You know, he's kind of like that symbol that's uniting. Right. Sometimes that's true, and sometimes symbols are better as martyrs. So a couple of things that I've spent a lot of time researching are religious history and World War II history. And this is one of the rare places where those two things overlap. So all of the sort of recent religions that have become very successful, think of like the Mormons, you know, the LDS Church, Jehovah's Witnesses, religions that came up in the last couple of years but have become quite successful over the last couple hundred years. The thing that they all seem to have in common is they started with a very charismatic leader. Mm-hmm. Then that charismatic leader died, and a very practical second in command took over. Mm-hmm. And when the practical second in command took over, everybody could rally around the dead leader, but the practical guy put all the rules in place, put all the mechanisms to keep the thing going in place, right? And then if you look at what was happening in World War II, there was a lot of conversation about assassinating Hitler. There was a lot of conversation about, is that the right thing to do? He keeps making terrible, terrible tactical and strategic decisions. If we kill him and one of his really smart generals takes over, we could extend this war by another decade. Yeah, that's interesting.
Like,
that's
let's leave him in charge.
Yeah.
But the choice not to kill Marco is not based on any of those high ideals. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like Marco makes a personal decision to try to kill Holden, in that moment, Holden makes a very personal decision not to kill the love of his life's only child. It's a personal decision in the moment.
Yeah. I wrote down, and I know this isn't our top 5, and I just want to I wrote down like narcissistic characters I could think of, and at the top of my list is a narcissistic character that gives me great joy, and his humor comes from his narcissism. It's Archer And you think about it's like the comedy of the show comes from Archer being a narcissist, terrible person. You know, it's like such a good way to
well, they kind of all are.
Yeah.
But Archer is the king of narcissists for sure.
Yeah. And I thought of is it Vizzini in A Princess Bride? When he's talking about how smart he is, and he's like, you know, he goes, put it this way: have you heard of Aristotle, Plato, Socrates? And he says, yeah. He goes, morons. When he says, oh, you think you're that smart? Yeah. Put it this way: have you heard of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates? Morons. Yeah, narcissistic humor, like when there's a character like that and the humor springs from that, is hilarious. I mean, in some ways, like Jim Carrey's character in Dumb and Dumber is kind of like that, right? Like he's just like, he comes and he tells him that he lost his job, and then Jeff Bridges is like, yeah, you know, I lost my job too, and he's like, what a loser. Talking about these, you know, deep questions of morality and character arcs. You know, I was thinking about it today, like reading about this episode, and when Clarissa is talking to Holden, and I'm thinking about it, and you think about the things that she's done. I mean, they're fucking horrible things. And, you know, especially like you go back to that scene where she's like having to crush that guy's head so she can stuff it into a locker and everything like that. I wonder what it is like for her carrying around those memories now. And then also, how can anybody, I understand why Amos, but how could anybody really ever trust her? Because if she was able to be so psychologically spun around in such an intense way, to be capable of things like that, how do you trust that she wouldn't be spun around like that again? You know,
I'm been a big believer in the mantra, forgive, but don't forget. Right. I know people in my life who have done stuff that really pissed me off. I've found a way to forgive them for it, but I don't forget. I remember.
Thank you for your forgiveness. I didn't mean it.
Yeah. Well, but I don't trust you. I mean, I know what you're capable of.
I didn't know you were asleep. I thought. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I think that's definitely what the crew of the Rocinante is doing. They've found a way to forgive Clarissa, but they haven't forgotten. You know, you still want to keep an eye on her, and Holden is very gradually letting her into their world, because one of the things that comes up in this season of the show is this is the first time he gives her a watch on the ship. You know, like lets her stand watch, which is a big deal because it means she's the only one who's awake.
Yeah.
But they didn't, you know, she didn't just walk on the ship and Holden's like, here's your security card and access to everything. You know, you find a way. You find a way to let people slowly come back.
One thing I wanted to ask you before we move on to the top 5, this has kind of been a philosophical episode, and we kind of use this. We've been using this episode to kind of ask these really deep questions. But one of the things, and I think about this a lot ever since I saw Pet Sematary, but like on Laconia, this is the season where her brother gets killed. Yeah. And I think about this a lot, and I'm curious because you don't have kids, but you have a wife, and you adore your wife. If you were in that situation, would you take your wife to be rebuilt?
Probably.
It's interesting to me because I don't know. I haven't read past this, so I don't know like what they come back of, like what the proto-molecules like on them. But I do know, like I'm still thinking of Pet Sematary. And what's interesting is like when I truly think about it, the craziness of grief, right? Like how grief can affect you, because at the end of the day, 10 out of 10 times I'm taking them to the dogs, you know? And it's like, even if it's a Pet Sematary situation, you know?
Yeah, but this isn't Pets. I mean, Pet Sematary, they come back evil, right? They come back with...
So how do they come back? How do they come back with this?
They come back a little different, but basically the same. I mean, she gets to observe the mama bird still taking care of her babies. Like the resurrected mama bird is taking care of her babies, and she's not like murdering her babies or anything. The little drone that she had fixed, it still works it's a little weird. It's got some new weird parts that weren't there before, but it still works as a drone.
Yeah.
So it's not like everything comes back as something evil. It just comes back a little different, but basically the same thing.
Okay, so that's interesting. So forget about Pet Sematary, whole new thing. So you're taking them to the dogs, they're going to come back. Is there something inside of you of like I don't think these are forces I should be meddling with. And so I wouldn't do that. Or is there something like, I don't give a shit, I need to see my wife again, so I'm going to do it?
I don't believe in the forces we shouldn't be meddling with argument, because that's sort of that's a holdover from this is something that only should be God's domain. And I'm, pretty strict atheist. So I don't think there are any things that are forces we shouldn't be. I think there are forces we can choose not to because they're a bad idea. We can make the choice not to build antimatter bombs, and it's probably a good choice. But it doesn't.
And let me rephrase that so you can give a more accurate answer. When I say forces that shouldn't be dealt with, what I mean is like if you take like on a biological level, we don't truly understand what's bringing this person back to life. We don't truly understand like what brain wires are being back connected or how the health is. We don't know like what a body that's been dead for a certain amount of time, if it comes back. So you don't know at this point. Maybe you do as you've written further along in the book, but we don't know if there's more suffering, more severe, unnecessary suffering that could come with bringing them back to life. And so the question is like, what if being dead, has done something to her organs, or there's going to be a constant amount of pain or something, And so like, there's so much math that kind of goes into it. Like, I don't know like, is there going to be tumors or this, or like, are the, so would you, in meddling those so would you do it? Would you take
I don't know.
the chance?
I mean, like the example that she has is the bird. She goes and she looks at the bird after she's had it brought back, or after the dogs have brought it back, and it's behaving like the mama bird did. It seems to be getting around just fine. It's taking care of its babies. Like, it seems to have just slid right back into its life. Yeah. It doesn't act like it's in a terrible amount of pain or anything like that.
Yeah.
So if you go off of that example, you're like, yeah, it looks a little different than it used to, but not that much different. And it seems to just be living its life. And it still has the ability to have an emotional connection because it's still taking care of its babies. Yeah. Right. It didn't become a robot. I think even just going off that one example, it seems pretty positive.
But that's not necessarily like just seeing a bird that came back to life and is feeding his babies. It doesn't give you like, oh, okay. Like, it's all, it doesn't like, it's not like, oh, there's extensive testing and we know medically that everything is fine. You don't know if that bird could, like, his head could explode in a couple of days.
You would probably want more testing.
You probably want more testing. Yeah. But
the FDA should probably get involved.
But if that wasn't available to you, just by like your knee jerk reaction of like, I can't deal with this. I gotta take her in.
Just think of the capital you get from that. Like, every time you're just sitting around and you're like, hey, you know what? I'd really like a beer or something. And she's like, get your own beer. You're like, hey, remember that time when I brought you back from the dead?
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
You got a lot of coin to spend.
Yeah,
you got so much coin to spend.
You'd be dead and rotting in the thing if it wasn't for me. Go get me a beer. All right, Joseph, what's our top 5?
We have dumb decisions. Best dumb decisions by characters in movies. Yeah, it was hard to come up with this. The patrons were working on it. I assisted.
Oh, Ty, I bet you got like a whole notebook of like horror movie decision.
Ellis, of course.
Ellis.
Ellis is the best.
Yeah, that was a good one. Everyone and Everything, Prometheus, killing John Wick's puppy. So, I mean, Ellis is on the list, you know.
I mean, it's Die Hard. It goes in the 0 position automatically.
And it goes in 0, but it's also like perfectly embodies like what the setup is. Well,
because it's a stupid decision based on hubris. Ellis thinks he is God's gift to making business deals. He's like, these terrorists are just a bunch of dumb shits. I can negotiate circles around them because they're all idiots. So let me get in there, put on my negotiating hat. I'll negotiate our way out of this with my superpowers. And I'm super high on cocaine right now, so I think I'm awesome.
He could be any agent walking around in Hollywood right now because there's times when there's agents in Hollywood that get so embedded in that culture and lifestyle that they think that how agenting works and how Hollywood works is how everything else in the world works. So they'll apply their agenting logic to all these other things. And you're like, this works this way, in this very specific place, in this very specific business, but it doesn't work in the real world all the time. And then, so like the mayor shutting down for Jaws, that is a decision based on greed. So you have one
Yep.
based on hubris and you based on greed, and I think that's a great. It's like what's his name in Alien?
Carter Burke.
Carter
That's right.
Burke. So I would put Jaws up there for sure.
Yeah.
And Carter Burke, because what a
Yeah,
that's
so you've got Alien on there looking at the egg. I think that's less than Carter Burke, though, because Carter Burke knows what's in that egg. He read Ripley's report, and he sends people to go get it anyway, even knowing what it is.
And to bring it fucking back.
Yeah.
Keep that shit out in space. That is the ultimate dumb fucking thing.
Yeah. Well, but again, it's that greed thing of hey, if I'm the first one to get this, I'll be a gillionaire.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm going to disagree with one of these. You got the turning the containment unit off on Ghostbusters. I am very sympathetic to Peck. Look at it from Peck's perspective. He comes in. He's actually, if you watch the first scene when he first comes in and talks to Bill Murray, he's actually very nice. He's polite. He's respectful. Bill Murray is a douchebag to him for no reason.
Yeah.
Just treats him like shit. Then when he comes back, they refuse to explain to him what is happening. There's no reason. He's a guy who lives in a pre-ghost world. There's no reason for him to believe that turning off this thing is going to release a jillion ghosts into the air. If you look at, if you're Peck, none of the things that they're saying make any sense. And what they're doing with the power there presents a legitimate hazard to the people of New York. I think Peck gets a bad rap.
I will say too, it's the power of characterization, right? Just because Bill Murray's so goddamn charismatic and Peck is a dipshit, then you automatically just side with Bill Murray. But if you really look at the situation, you're fucking going around shooting electron guns in the city and saying you're capturing
shit up with electron guns.
Saying that you're capturing ghosts and breaking every law, every sanitary law in ordinance and everything like that. And he's like, "What's going on?" And you just treat him like a dick.
Well, and the reason we hate him is because it's so funny when Bill Murray makes fun of him.
Yeah,
and because Bill Murray's so funny, then we're on board. Yeah.
Wait, can we put playing with the Ouija board in the movie Ouija board on there?
All right, when I come to your house, we're definitely playing with the Ouija board.
Oh, no, you're not.
Oh, yeah.
The Ouija board will not come into the house.
Me and you and Jen and the boys, we're going to get the Ouija board going.
I'm going to have garlic and a crucifix and holy water.
I do kind of agree with the one that's Iron Man challenges the terrorist and gives him his home address. Probably not a great idea. I remember watching that in the theater and being like, what? Why is he doing that? And again, that's a dumb decision on hubris, right? I'm so awesome that no one can possibly cause me any harm. So I'm going to invite you to my house. And then somebody shows up at your house and causes you harm and you're surprised by that?
Cops tormenting John Rambo. That's an interesting one. But the thing is they didn't know he was John Rambo. They were just being, they're just being their bully selves. They're just being
asshole cops.
Yeah, they're just being asshole cops, and they didn't know it was John Rambo. It's stupid to do that to anybody.
It is stupid to do that to anybody. And occasionally when you do that, you're doing it to John Rambo, and that's always going to turn out bad. I do agree that the making super smart sharks, that seems like the most obvious, this went terribly wrong. It's the most obvious this went terribly wrong in history. You know what we should do? We should make sharks that are smarter than humans. That would be such a good idea. And nobody in the room went, you know what? How about we not give a prehistoric killing machine the intelligence of a human?
We already went through the dad in Pet Sematary. We kind of explained, when you're in grief, you're not thinking clearly. John Wick's puppy, they didn't know who the fuck John Wick was.
They had no idea.
Oh, okay. Rose getting back on the ship. Wait, what is... Oh, when she was on... No. That's not the one that I think stupid. What I think stupid is that was a big fucking door that she was balancing on. She could have got Jack on that thing. They tried once and it fell off. It's like when I'm at the lake with my kids, we'll try over and over again to get, if I get on the kayak, we'll smile and we have to keep trying, but we'll eventually get it. Or if we're on a float, we can eventually fucking get it. If poor Jack's freezing in the fucking water, he gives one attempt and they're not going to be able to do it. And she's like, sorry, Jack. And she's watching him die there. He should keep trying to get on the fucking thing. He should keep trying.
And I believe the Mythbusters proved that two people can easily fit on that door.
Did they?
Yeah.
Good. Shout out to Mythbusters. And if you can't get on the thing, like swim around, generate heat. Don't just sit there, be still. That's what's going to make you freeze to death. Just start swimming. Generate heat by just doing as much activity as you can, or go knock somebody off of their fucking thing, like, and then swim it back to her, and y'all hang out there. But like,
I would say
fight
that
for your life, Jack.
I would say that you have an unusual amount of expertise in this field because isn't this what you trained to do in the Navy? Is how to stay alive if you fall in the water?
Yeah, but I don't. we were never in this kind of cold water. But what I would do,
like ocean survival is like your training, right?
But Ty, tell me this: when you're out there and you're freezing, okay, and you can't get on hers, aren't you going to look around to somebody that you didn't really like on the boat, and fucking drop them in the sink, and then like you get on the?
I do remember when I watched it, thinking like, who's the closest other person? Because there was other boats in the water. And some of those boats weren't even full because they had been dropping boats that weren't even full. Yeah. They're like, look around. Is there another boat nearby that I could swim to?
You could fucking cram those boats till it's like where it's barely this much above the water. But at the end of the day, like there was a lot of dickhead rich people on that boat. Like I would look around and be like, yeah, I didn't really like that guy. So I'm taking his raft. He's done. And then you both survive and have a love story for the rest of your life. But they just kind of accept the fact that they're there.
Well, so for me, Carter Burke sending a bunch of people to go get the alien egg, when he read the fucking report and knew what was in the egg, he knew what was in there.
So stupid. That was so fucking stupid. I would say the mayor shutting down the beach. I mean, that is a classic cinematic greed making the stupid choice. Smart sharks. Like, what is even the point? I didn't watch the movie. What was the point of doing that?
The point was that by making super smart sharks, they got some kind of treatment for Alzheimer's. Like somehow super smart shark brains gave you a treatment for Alzheimer's. I don't remember the exact way that worked, but
that's not too stupid.
I think that is the great conundrum of that is like the only way that we can get this treatment for Alzheimer's is by making hyper smart giant sharks. Like, yes, getting a treatment for Alzheimer's is good. Giant hyper smart sharks is bad. I don't know.
Playing dress up in Zombieland. That one.
Oh, because when Bill Murray gets killed, because he dresses up as a zombie and surprises.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. God, that was one of the greatest cameos in any film in history.
Yeah, it was pretty fantastic. And was it you who told me that was originally supposed to be Matthew McConaughey?
I might have told you that because I've read that. I didn't see this, but I did read this Star-Lord hitting Thanos. So he wakes up. What was the point? Explain that situation to me.
So that's in Infinity War, where they've got this plan to get the glove away from Thanos. The girl who can make you fall asleep by touching your head is like on top of him, holding his head to keep him asleep, and they're trying to pull the glove off. Star-Lord realizes that Thanos killed Gamora, so he runs up and starts punching him in the face, which wakes him up before they get the glove off. It's pretty fucking stupid.
That's stupid. Yeah, we'll put that up there.
Once the glove is off, then beat the shit out of him because now he doesn't have his superpowers.
Was everybody like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
So I say playing dress up for Zombieland.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
Because it's so great a scene too. Oh, Rose on the door in the Titanic. Yeah. And I didn't see the Infinity War, but I just feel like that would be like the perfect example that fits our criteria.
It was pretty stupid. And it was stupid for no reason too. It was just like, anybody who took 2 seconds to think about it would not do that.
Can I disagree just a little bit? Is that, I mean, it was
you're not allowed to disagree. Who the fuck do you think you are? Coming in
heat of the moment, and I don't think he knew the plan. So it definitely was a dumbass move.
He did know the plan. He knew exactly what the plan was.
Oh, okay.
He helped them come up with the plan.
So alrighty. I was like thinking though, because like Iron Man, he's like with people, he's with an interview on camera doing this. And so, okay. But yeah, Star-Lord.
But the difference between the two.
He killed so many people with his dumbassery. So, okay, you're right. Yeah,
the difference between the two is in Iron Man 3, he puts himself at risk by being an idiot. In Infinity War, he puts the entire universe at risk by being an idiot. There's a difference in stakes there.
Where people are like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, stop.
Yes.
What were the consequences for it?
Half the universe died.
He snapped his finger.
Jeez,
Literally
what?
half of the life forms in the universe died.
Oh my God, that is definitely going on the list. That is the dumbest fucking thing.
Yep.
Wow. Half the universe.
It wasn't even to save his girlfriend. If it was like, oh, if I don't punch him right now, I can't save my girlfriend. At least I can kind of see that. His girlfriend was already dead. He's just punching him because he's mad that his girlfriend is dead. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Ty, we know you got a heart out, and we had such a great time doing this. Do you want to say anything to our lovely millions of fans before we go?
No. I don't have anything. Like, I used up all of my
That was
talking.
beautiful.
I used up all of my talking already. And,
You have such
and now
a
I got to
way
go
with
do
words.
another fucking interview, so.
You have such a way with words. You're like a poet. Thank you guys for hanging out. Please like and subscribe. One day I want to do it in front of the video where it actually counts. But support us. This has been a lot of fun. Love you guys. Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.